Welcome, and welcome to Let's Talk Edu Professor Chris. First, I do want to take this opportunity to actually thank everyone for all the feedback, whether it's the camera, whether it's the lights, whether it's the background, all the feedback. That's my camera right here. Great. Please keep sending all those feedback back. I will do my best. Anything I could do to kind of improve this podcast, I would do it. So please keep sending in your feedback. And I really, from the bottom of my heart, appreciate all your feedback. It's been quite an interesting week. Needless to say, I'm actually going to do my best to stay out of politics. Here on my podcast, I do want my podcast to reach my students. So I think the more I stay out of politics, the better it is. I'm just going to focus on my students and, of course, college education. So with that, let's get right to it. Welcome to Let's Talk Edu Professor Chris. It is the best college podcast where I will continue to explore the big questions about education, careers, and the future. But most importantly, this is the podcast that is empowering minds one episode at a time. I am still your host, Professor Chris. What are we talking about today? My topic today is facing the enrollment decline, solutions for higher ed. So before I get into this, once again, please put all your comments, suggestions in the YouTube comment sections, and I promise to review them. So why is this a big topic, or why have I decided to tackle this topic? Because it's a big issue. As much as I said, I'm trying not to get into politics, yes, even on a political level, the discussion is higher education, why enrollment is down, why students don't want to go to college or universities. I actually disagree with that, but I'm going to tell you here why. Let's take a quick pause. My question, and again, I know usually my podcast is for my students and I'll get to my students, but since this is a bigger concern, so whether you're an administrative person, whether you're in government, whether you're in higher ed, why is this a big issue? So I kind of want to help out in that area a little bit, and then don't worry, my students, I will get to you. So while everybody's crying about enrollment decline, my question is anyone even asking the students why? Who is really asking the question? And are enrollment really declining? So I'm going to help you all out, since I deal with my students quite a little bit. Dear students, why are you not going to college? I think this is a bigger question. Why are the enrollment numbers down? Are people actually talking to the students? Are we talking to the high school graduates to find out why they're not going to college? Yet, colleges and universities are still spending a lot of money recruiting and marketing without really getting to the root causes of the situation. So let's do the numbers real quick. Data from the National Student Clearinghouse Research Center shows enrollment of 18-year-old freshmen has dropped by 5% this fall semester. The data reflects enrollment reports for 1.4 million 18-year-old freshmen as of October 31st, 2024. It also adds, the decline is most significant at both public and private, non-profit four-year colleges, which have seen more than 6% decline in enrollment, and for 46 states inside higher ed noted that the average drop was almost 7%. I'm going to have to read this once quick because I'm about to ask a question. The decline is almost significant at both public and private non-four-year colleges. So from that statement, who do you think was not mentioned, or who do you think is not affected when it comes to enrollment decline? I guarantee you it's our R1 schools, Ivy League schools, even though there's a little bit of decline there. But really, R1 institutions, R1 is really research institutions. There are about 50 of them, way up there, get a lot of funding. Everybody wants to go to those institutions, and we know them, right? And the reason they are not affected is because they do have a wait list. All our kids want to go there. Everybody wants to go there. Who doesn't want to go to Harvard? Who doesn't want to go to FIT? Who doesn't want to go to Stanford, right? So they're really not facing much of these enrollment issues. The other part, however, that was also not mentioned in here is our community colleges. So let's get into some of the issues first, and then I will kind of come back to why the enrollment numbers are declining and what needs to be done. Okay. So why don't you think students want to go to school? And it's not just the students, because parents also help advise their students on where to go to college and how they can support them. So it's not just the students making these decisions, right? But what do you think is the number one reason? Number one reason, of course, is rising tuition costs and student debt. There's also a perception of the college value. Students are actually asking, I'm graduating with this degree, yet I owe $120,000 on an average. Am I going to get the work that's going to help me pay off all these loans? And then there's a change in job market and workforce needs. I'm going to stress workforce needs. Currently, and I mentioned this in the last podcast, we have over 500,000 going into the millions. I say 500,000, 5 million workforce vacancies. This has to do with the trade skills and literally our workforce, right? Anywhere from electricians, manufacturers, right? People who are really hands-on. We're talking about trade skills, right? There's a big workforce gap that we need to fill. And you know what the solution is? Community colleges. If you want cheaper, that's your best option, which also happens to have the better faculty to student ratio, and it provides more alternatives, and I will get into that. More alternatives, again, being trade schools, apprenticeship, and of course, the community college is also the pipeline to bridging the workforce gap. So I'm going to share a quick story with you, real quick. I got two. I'm going to start with my experience once again, as I've always mentioned on this podcast from day one. My experience is from the R1 institutions, big research institution, to a small liberal arts school, and currently in the community college system. And over the years, I've learned quite a little bit. I must start my first story with my experience in my large 4-year institution. Students that struggled in the classroom excelled when they had to do or they had to work on hands-on club activities. A very good example was my students that I was advising, who were part of the Steel Bridge competition, right? And these were students who were amazing. When it came down to fabrication, welding, putting things together to build a physical bridge, prototype of a bridge, I must add, and excel, yet they struggle in the classroom. So what do you think is the best option for them? Most of our 4-year institutions don't teach trade skills, so our students are left with really no options. My second example also happens to be in a small liberal art private institution where the story wasn't any different. My students that were in the classroom, some of them struggled in the classroom when it came to scientific engineering concepts, but excelled when they were required to help build a solar car. And we're talking about a full-blown solar car that has everything to do with electrical, manufacturing, fabrication, chassis, balance, all fundamental skills that come out of trade skills. And they were great. They excelled. The reason I bring this up is because currently, in most of our institutions, we are actually not providing the students with the options. Not everyone can excel in the classroom. Not everyone can be an engineer. And I'm not taking anything away from those institutions, but we got to provide better options. So let's talk about some of the solutions. I think for all governmental agencies, high academias who are at a round table currently discussing the enrollment issues need to probably focus on what I'm about to share right now. There's got to be better partnership with local businesses, industries, with our schools to find out what the need is. We got to increase focus on community colleges as an entry point to higher education. I can't stress that enough. We got to introduce more flexible learning options. Either as online classes, hybrid models, micro-credentials, and really bottom line here for most students is how quick can I get into an institution, get some certification, get a diploma, get my degree so I could go out. If that is the option we're looking for, then once again, that is all provided within the community college environment. We also got to highlight innovation approaches. Colleges need to focus on high demand, high skill fields, of course, right? So I'm not saying, hey, all our needs are within the community colleges. What I'm trying to say is there are students within our four-year institutions that are not provided with the best options, and maybe that is not a good fit for them. That's all I'm saying. Institutions need to embrace experimental learning, internships, and job placement programs. Last but not the least, we need to use technology to enhance learning experience. We're currently talking about AI. And we can look at the pros and cons of AI, but let's really focus on the pros of AI and take advantage of that technology. All right, as usual, let's talk Ed with Professor Chris. It's all for the students. So I'm gonna get right back to my students. I think I've provided enough information for administrators and everyone that is thinking about some enrollment strategies, but I like to really get back to my students once again. So for my students, please, and I think we need to focus on high school students because usually, most of the high school students are thinking about maybe taking a year off after high school. And my advice is, please, let's take one class, just one class from a community college, because one is not costing you anything and it is going to help you decide on what you have to do. Community colleges, again, is the best place to experiment. It provides the opportunity to do that. It's cheap, so you could do that. If you're really thinking about, I want to go to college, but I think it's too expensive, once again, start small, start at a community college. And if it's something that you really want to do in a four-year institution, there's always the option to transfer. And I've always want to remind students about that. But start there. Most of your courses, believe it or not, your first 2-year courses, if you're thinking about giving theory a little break or having the edge to explore putting things together and understanding how things work immediately, once again, check out the community colleges. I am not against our four-year institutions and universities. So my advice has always been, please go if you're getting the full ride, because usually when we're talking about some of these challenges, cost is the number one concern. So by all means, if you're getting the full ride to go to Harvard, please go. And I pray that while you're there, you're going to find a program that best fits you and hopefully provides a better option for what you want to do. But don't get it twisted. While I'm all for four-year institutions, and I do also believe there's still the need for advanced science research or scientific research and innovations, and those institutions provide that. So again, I'm not against that, but don't get it twisted. Gone are the days when there was the assumption, presumption, or the perception that community colleges are for low caliber students. Oh, if you're not smart, you go to community college. No, that is not the case. Now, I actually have students smart enough to know that, you know what? There's a better way to save. There's the better way to have good faculty-student ratio. There's the better way to test my skills to find a better fit. So for my students, please put your comments, your questions, if you have any concerns. I'm getting ready. Don't worry. It's coming very soon. I'm going to provide you the reading material. Let's put it that way. I'm going to provide you with the reading material to make better choices, better options when it comes to college. Should you even go to college? It's coming. I will present that to you very shortly. So to wrap this up, please continue to tune in to Let's Talk Ed with Professor Chris. Keep asking your questions. Put your comments in the YouTube sections. Remember, this is the show that is empowering minds one episode at a time. Don't drink beer, but live beer. Balance, eat well, exercise, and rest. I'll see you all next time.